Good morning, Year 11, and welcome to your second video preparing you for English Language Paper 2 after the holidays. So you should have watched video number 1, which was Reading for Success. And in that video, we reminded ourselves that when we approach section A of this paper, the first thing we do is we find out the foci for question 2 and question 4. We write them at the top of our inserts, and then we use those foci to go through and highlight all of the information we will need for question 2 and question 4 in the texts. So at this point, your paper should look like this. We're now going to think about paper 2, question 2. And we're going to have a little think about how we best approach that. So we have got source A and source B nicely highlighted, ready to approach this 8-mark question. This is a comparison question, and it asks us to refer to all of source A and all of source B. And it tells us both writers are accompanied by another person on their adventure, Simon in source A and Marius in source B. We are being asked always for question 2 to write a summary of what we understand about the differences between the two companions, the differences between Simon and Marius. In what way are the companions different? Okay, so we know that we are going to use our quadrants. We can draw this on the question paper. We divide our page into 4 sections, and we are going to pull out 2 pieces of text from source A that describe Simon, the companion, and 2 pieces of text from source B that describe Marius, the companion. So let's start with source A. We're going to pull out 2 pieces of text that tell us something about this companion, Simon. Now you can see I've got quite a bit highlighted in orange there because I've really been through picking out all of the key detail in the text. And I'm going to use this piece of text here. I could see him weighing up the possibilities. I waited for him to make up his mind. You will notice I have not given a 1 or 2 word reference quote. It's quite a lengthy quote that allows us to get a lot of meaning out of it. I could see him weighing up the possibilities. I waited for him to make up his mind. And my second textual reference that I'm going to use is, he said cheerfully. And the second quote to back that up, he was still grinning. I feel that those 2 quotes go nicely together. He's speaking cheerfully and he's grinning. So I'm going to use 2 quotes there, ready to make my point about Simon the companion. So I now need to think about, okay, my chosen quote. I could see him weighing up the possibilities. I waited for him to make up his mind. This is my evidence from the text. Now, as ever, I need to interpret that evidence. I need to sum that evidence up for the exam board. So I've looked at that evidence and I'm thinking, what does that evidence tell me about Simon? Because this will be my point that I put across to the exam board. So I'm thinking he's weighing up possibilities. The climber Joe is having to wait for Simon to make up his mind. He's clearly thinking about things before he makes a decision. So I'm going to interpret that and I'm going to say, Simon is thoughtful and he carefully considers things before acting. I've looked at the evidence and I've thought, what does that evidence tell me about Simon? Well, he's quite thoughtful. He carefully considers things before acting. I'm happy with that. So I'm now going to go to my second piece of evidence where we see him speaking cheerfully and grinning. And I'm thinking, okay, what can I say about Simon based on those quotes? So I can see that he's cheerful, he's grinning. So my interpretation, my summary of how Simon is that Simon's very upbeat. He's upbeat and positive even when things go wrong. And I'm looking at that and I'm happy. Cheerful, grinning, yeah, this is someone that's positive. Optimistic's another word I could have used. even when things go wrong. So I'm taking the evidence and I'm summarising it in my own words for source A. Now I need to do the same thing for source B. So I've looked through source B and I'm jumping on this textual reference, these two textual references. I've got steadfastly holding the rope tight, steadfastly holding the rope tight, and also he has the strength of a bear. So this is where I need to read and I need to interpret, what do those two quotes tell me about Marius? Steadfastly. Steadfastly means not moving. He's not moving. He's holding the rope tight. And he's got the strength of a bear. So I'm thinking Marius is reliable and strong. He's steadfast. That rope is not moving on his watch. And he's strong, really strong and reliable. Which takes me to my second textual reference, where the writer tells us that Marius kindly put my rug in the corner and also carried a lantern for her and pulled her up. Kindly put my rug in the corner, carried a lantern, pulled me up. I've jumped on these three textual references, these three quotes, and I'm thinking, what do they tell me about Marius? Well, they tell me that he's kind. He's kind and he's helpful. He's clearly doing lots of things for Gertrude, putting her rug down, carrying the lamp, pulling her up the mountain. So I'm going to interpret this and say Marius is a kind and helpful companion. So now my quadrant of evidence and summary is done. I've got my point in blue and my evidence in red. What I now need to do is put together a PEE paragraph for source A, first point, compared with PEE for source B, first point. PEE for A versus PEE for B. And I'm going to do that twice. I'm going to take this point and compare it with this point for source B. And then I'm going to take my second point from A and I'm going to compare it with the second point from B. And I'm going to use a PEE structure. This question is about me summarising in my point what the companion is like. I've got that information in blue. Using the evidence I've chosen to back up what I'm saying. And then I must make inference. I have to explain what the evidence I've chosen allows me to understand about Simon, allows me to understand about Marius. What does it imply? What does it suggest to me? Now, I am going to model this first point. I'm going to compare Simon being thoughtful and considerate compared with Marius being reliable and strong. I'm going to model that using a PEE. So what would it look like? I'm going to summarise. For my point, I'm going to summarise what Simon is like. I'm going to use my evidence here to back up my summary, to back up what I'm saying. And then I'm going to explain, what does the evidence allow me to understand about the companion? And I'm going to compare this point here with this point here. And my PEE looks like this. So you can see in green is the points, in blue is the evidence, and in yellow, the largest section, is the inference, the explanation, where I explain what that evidence allows me to understand about each companion. Let's read through together, noticing the structure as we go. Point. The companion in source A, Simon, is thoughtful and carefully considers things before acting. Evidence. The writer describes Simon as weighing up the possibilities and having to wait for him to make up his mind. Explain. This careful thinking implies Simon does not act rashly or quickly. He thinks about things carefully. He doesn't rush in. This suggests he's cautious. This allows the reader to understand that Simon will do the right thing to get Joe Simpson off the mountain still alive. Now I'm going to compare that with B. Now I'm thinking Simon being thoughtful is quite similar to Marius being kind. So I'm going to use this comparative language of similarly. If it was different, I'd write on the other hand or in direct contrast, but I feel it's quite similar. Similarly, the companion in B, Marius, is also shown to be reliable and strong. We see him steadfastly holding the rope tight, and he's described as having the strength of a bear. Now let me explain what that evidence allows me to understand about the companion. Explain. This implies Marius is physically very capable and strong. It suggests he's able to physically support Gertrude and stop her from tumbling down the mountain. This makes Marius seem trustworthy and dependable. This allows the reader to marvel at Marius's strength, and we feel Gertrude is in safe hands on her trip. So you will notice that my explanation, my inference, is pretty detailed. This question is misleading because it says write a summary. It does want a summary. It does want you to summarize what the companion is like as your point. It does want you to back that up with evidence, but it also needs you to infer. What does the evidence allow you to understand about the companion? The other thing I want you to note before you have a go at this for yourself is that I'm embedding the quotes as though they are my own words. The writer describes Simon as weighing up the possibilities. We're not saying the quote weighing up the possibilities. Try and be skillful. The writer describes Simon as. The writer presents Simon as. Try and embed that quote. It's a small thing, but it just makes our writing a little bit more sophisticated. Now, with this modelled answer in mind, you are now going to have a go at comparing this point about Simon being upbeat with Marius being kind and helpful. You too are going to use a PEE compared with a PEE. You are also going to make sure that your inference is detailed. You have a point, there they are in blue, evidence in red, and then you need to explain what does that evidence allow you to understand about Simon, allow you to understand about Marius. You should spend around 7 minutes, no more, compiling those paragraphs. And that will really help you prepare for these mock exams that are coming after the holidays. Thanks, Year 11. Here are your sentence structures to help you do that. So if you need that, you can pause the video at any time. And you are now going to compare this point here with this point here. Good luck.